Fire Kings are finally here, so today I'm bringing you my incredible full power Fire King deck profile. What's potion? You got Matt here, and welcome back to another competitive Yu-Gi-Oh video. Today is the continuation of our Fire King week. Last video I brought you the ultimate guide and introduction to Fire King, but now the structure deck has finally been released, which means it's time for my official Fire King deck profile. So if you're excited for the video, then do me a favor and smash the like button. If this video hits 125 likes, then I'll bring you the ultimate Fire King combo guide with test hands. Also, if you like deck profiles, combo guides, meta discussions, and competitive Yu-Gi-Oh videos just like this one, you're gonna love this channel. So make sure to subscribe and help reach your end of year goal of 4,000 subscribers. Now with that being said, here's the best Fire King deck profile for the December 2023 competitive Yu-Gi-Oh format. Let's jump into it. So welcome to the deck profile. We're gonna cover this 43 card main deck, 15 card extra deck, and 15 card side deck. This is not a budget variant of the deck, but for those of you who are looking for a more budget alternative, I'll make sure to give you the places where you should make changes in this strategy. I'll explain what you want to put in instead of the cards I'm going to be showing. But all you're going to need for this really is going to be 3 copies of the structure deck. And if you have 3 copies of it, you can make a pretty solid deck here, but you can definitely improve it with some cards from the core sets. So let's go ahead and just jump onto it, starting off with our main deck. Of course, I do want to say before I continue that the side deck you're going to see is tailored specifically for my local scene and for what I'm expecting the meta to shape up to be. If there are things that have to change, then we're going to be making adjustments. And of course, I can bring another Fire King deck profile for you guys when the time comes. So we're going to start off with our Fire Kings. The first card we're going to be showing off is 3 copies of Legendary Fire King Ponix. This card is absolutely insane. It's a new card. It is one of the reasons why the deck is actually so good. The fact that number 1, it's a level 1 fire is really important for one of the engines we're playing in the deck, but more important than that, it has 3 really solid effects. The first is going to be that if a fire that you control, or sorry, the monster that was originally fire rather, is destroyed by battle or card effect, doesn't matter where, you can special summon this card from your hand, which is great because if this card is normal or special summoned, you can then search for any Fire King spell or trap from your deck to your hand, which is again really strong for what the strategy tries to do. And then if this card here was destroyed on the next standby phase after it was destroyed while it's in the graveyard, you can just add it back to your hand, which is so nice. One of the ways we start destroying cards is going to be with Fire King High Avatar Kirin. This card is also really strong. This card allows you to, has 2 effects, I should say. The first thing is going to be that while it's in your hand during the main phase, you can quick effect destroy a fire in your hand or face of field, and then special summon this card out, which is great to trigger your powerful Fire King effects when they're destroyed. But when this card itself is destroyed, you can then just special summon a fire beast, beast warrior, winged beast. I think no, it's a Fire King monster specifically for this guy here from your graveyard or your hand without targeting, and then you can non-target destroy 1 card in the field, which is great for not only for destroying your opponent's cards, but destroying your cards as well, or attempting to destroy your cards as well, I should say. Next up is going to be 3 copies of Sacred Fire King Garunix. This is the cover card of the structure deck. It has 2 effects. The first of which is going to be on normal or special summon. You can destroy a fire beast, beast warrior, or winged beast from your hand, deck, or field, and that's going to be great to start triggering the effects, but also get literally any Fire King you want to into rotation, which is so nice. Its second effect is that if a fire monster is destroyed from anywhere, you can special summon this card from your graveyard if it was there in the graveyard when the card was destroyed, or from your hand even if it wasn't, which means that if you have a way to destroy a card and search out the Fire King, the Sacred Fire King Garunix, that's really good because you can just immediately special summon it using its effect and then activate its effect to destroy a card from the deck. Really strong. We then play 2 copies of Arvata. This is the monster negate of the deck. We have 1 copy of Rangbali and 1 copy of Barong. These are our little Fire King monster, level 4s, our beast warriors. So what do? Arvata is a monster negate. The way it works is when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can negate the effect, and if you do negate it, you can destroy one other fire that you control or in your hand. That's really good. Doesn't target, doesn't pay for cost. It's a card effect. It is really nice. Its second effect is that if it is itself destroyed, you can target 1 Fire King in your graveyard and special summon it, or it's not a Fire King, it's a fire beast, wing beast, or beast warrior, so one of the tri-types in your graveyard, special summon it back, but its effects are negated and it's destroyed in the end phase. That's important to note because its effects on field are negated, but not its effects when it's destroyed. That's very critical. We then have Fire King Avatar Rangbali. This is another new card to the strategy, the 4th one. Essentially, this card is the spell and trap negate of the archetype. It's going to be basically the same thing as Arvata, but for spells and traps. So if a spell trap is activated, you can negate it. If you do, destroy another fire on your hand or face up field. Its second effect, though, is going to be that if a face-up Fire King monster you control is destroyed by a card effect, except during the damage step, you can just special summon this card from your hand. So it's a free special in a lot of situations as well. We then have Fire King Avatar Barong, another great option here because if a Fire King, face-up Fire King monster is destroyed by a card effect, you can just special summon this card from your hand, which is again really good to swarm the field. But more importantly than that, the reason why we play this card in the deck is because when this card is destroyed and sent to the graveyard during the next standby phase, if it's still in the graveyard, you can add any Fire King from your deck to your hand. not necessarily Fire King monster, Fire King card. So that's really, really strong. And that's what we're going to be trying to do. We're trying to get a big advantage loop with all of these cards here. So that's going to be it for the Fire King monsters in the strategy. Quite a few of them. I believe it's going to be 13 is the count. And they're all really, really, really important. The one thing I might adjust, I might drop down Garunix to 2 copies, but I think at 3 copies it gets the job done. As for our Fire King spells, we have 2 copies of the new Fire King Sanctuary, as well as 2 copies of Fire King Island, 1 copy of Skyburn, and 1 copy of Circle. Let's go over and talk about each of these. So Fire King Sanctuary has 3 effects, are all really good, more importantly than the last one. The first thing it's going to do is on activation of Fire King Sanctuary, you can activate Fire King Island, the field spell, directly from your deck, which is huge. It means you don't have to play terraforming, and it's great because Fire King Island kind of gets the entire engine going for the strategy. On top of that, if a card in your field spell zone would be destroyed by a card effect, you can destroy 1 fire from your hand or face-up field instead, and that's great to start triggering the effects of your Fire King monsters. And on top of that, another thing that's great about this is when your opponent special summons a monster or monsters, you can immediately after the effect resolves, Xyz summon a Fire Xyz monster using Fire Kings that you control. Right now it's only 1 Fire King Xyz. You don't have to summon a Fire King Xyz. It can be any Fire Xyz, and there's a few of them, but you really want to take advantage of what the Fire King Xyz does, and that's what this card really does for you. So it's a great card to end on your side of the field. Fire King Island is great. Has a few different effects. The first one is going to be a mandatory effect. When it's banished, leaves the field, destroys all cards, all monsters you control, which is a little unfortunate, but it does trigger some effects, so it can be useful in the right situations. Its second effect is going to be once per turn, you can activate one of these 2 effects. The first effect is that you can destroy 1 monster in your hand or field, and if you do, add a Fire King monster from deck to hand. It's any monster that you destroy. It's really nice. And second effect is going to be if you control no monsters, you can just special summon 1 Fire Winged Beast monster from your hand. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Fire King Winged Beast, it can be a Fire Winged Beast, which is really nice. Then we have Fire King Skyburn. This is a new card, also known as Fire King Sacred Immolation. This is the TCG name of the card. You target an equal number of Fire King monsters you control and cards your opponent controls as cost and destroy them. If a Fire King card you control would be destroyed by card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard. Instead, you can only use 1 of these 2 effects per turn, and only once that turn. This card is really nice because if you target, like, say, 2 Fire Kings you control and 2 cards your opponent controls, and you chain the effect of the High Avatar Kirin, you're able to put yourself in a situation where you can destroy multiple cards and trigger the effect to search as well, which is really, or to summon itself, I should say, which is really nice. Circle the Fire King, however, is another really solid option here. It's a pretty good card in general, but not seeing too much play, and some builds might even decide to just cut it permanently. The card essentially lets you target a Fire King, a Fire Monster on field, and a Fire Monster in graveyard, destroy the first, special summon the other. That's it. It's nice to be able to get extra damage on board, trigger the effects of Fire King monsters, but it definitely is a cuttable card. I just feel that with the amount of times you're looping something like Ponix, you want to have access to another card in your deck to be able to search for it, and you don't always want to be searching for Skyburn instead of something like Sanctuary, so Circle could be a good option as well, but I definitely see the appeal of potentially cutting it. That's going to be it though for our Fire King spells and traps. We're not playing Onslaught and we're not playing Echelon, they're just not good enough right now. So moving on to our next engine here, we are going to be playing the Sinful Spoils engine. We have 3 copies of Wanted, 1 copy of Diabellstar, and 1 copy of Original Sinful Spoils Snake Eye. So this obviously increases the price of the deck. It also increases the ceiling of the deck though significantly. So I just want to say before I move on though that every single card I've shown you so far before these ones here can be found in the structure deck. Really important. But these cards here, these 5 cards here are pretty important for what the strategy tries to do. Why? Well, through the effect of Wanted, which gets you to Diabellstar, and Diabellstar, which gets you to Original Sinful Spoils, and Original Sinful Spoils, which gets you to literally any level 1 fire in the deck, is really nice. This gives you a way to get access to Ponix without actually having to normal summon it, and that means that you just have additional consistency in the deck and additional power for that reason. On top of that, because we're playing this engine, we get an additional draw off the effect of Wanted and it's in the graveyard. We can banish this card in our graveyard, bottom deck the Sinful Spoils, the Original Sinful Spoils, I should say, and then draw a card, which is really nice. And then Diabellstar is just Diabellstar. It has its own effects, gets itself on the field, etc. It's a pretty straightforward card. But the reason why I want to play these cards is because I also want to play the Snake Eye package of 1 copy of Snake Eye Ash and 1 copy of Snake Eye Flamberge Dragon. If I was not playing the Sinful Spoils package, I would not be playing these 2 cards here. They're nice, but they're not necessary unless you're specifically playing these 5 cards. So this specific engine over here is cuttable if you are playing something like the Nadir Servant engine. The Nadir Servant engine is also really good if you want to deep dive about what the engine actually is. Check out the video I posted 2 days ago. I'll link it up in the cards right now, but essentially it's 3 copies of Nadir Servant, a copy of Dogmatic and Maximus, a Garura in the extra deck, and a copy of Shurag in the extra deck with 1 of either the Tri-Brigade Farigite or Titaniclad in the extra deck with a copy of Fleur-de-Lis in the main deck. So it's the same amount of cards in the main deck really, but it ends up being an initial 2 to 3 cards in the extra deck, which may not be the right decision to make. It also requires you to use your normal summon, but it is significantly cheaper. A copy of Wanted goes for like $75, $80 right now. If you don't have that kind of money to burn on this, then absolutely play it into your servant package. It's going to cost you like $10 tops for all those cards, and maybe even $5. So just keep that in mind. Definitely go with that instead. But then the Snake Eye pack. Let's talk about why we play this. Snake Eye Ash on summon allows us to search for a level 1 fire monster, any one of them, including Ponix, which is really good. Second effect is for cost. You can send itself and any other face-up, or send up 2 face-up cards you control the graveyard, including itself. So it can be any other face-up card in your spell trap zone, a monster that's there, a monster on the field, whatever, to the graveyard, and you can special summon a Snake Eyes monster from your hand or deck. In this case, it'll be Flamber's Dragon. This guy here has the effect to target a card on the field or in the graveyard and just place it in the spell and trap zone, a monster specifically, I should say, which is really nice for removal. It's an interesting form of removal, which is really cool. But on top of that, during your opponent's turn, as a quick effect, you can special summon that card to your side of the field, which is really nice. And then finally, you have the effect that when it's sent from the hand or field to the graveyard, you can special summon 2 level 1 fires from your graveyard, and that's huge for what the strategy tries to do, to trigger the effects on your opponent's turn and just play on your opponent's turn in general. Also, before I continue, I want to shout out to the guys at my local. So shout out to Josh for providing me the extra copy of Wanted at a great price, and shout out to Milan as well from Locals for providing me an awesome Flamber's Dragon at a great price too. So thanks guys, appreciate it so much. Make sure to shout out and thank Josh and Milan in the comments, guys. Let's go ahead and move on to our next engine, and that's going to be, again, like I said, you don't have to play these cards here. If you do, then great. If you don't, Nadir Servant is awesome. If you don't play them, again, Pot of Prosperity, 3 copies of those are going to be your best friend. In terms of consistency pieces, we have 3 copies of Fire Formation Tenki. This also comes in the structure deck, as well as 2 copies of Pot of Prosperity. Why am I playing Prosperity in the strategy when I have the Wanted stuff? Well, I'm playing more than 40 cards. I want to have as much consistency as possible. And on top of that, I am playing 12 non-engine pieces, and I want to be able to see my side deck cards. And the fact that playing Prosperity allows me to have an easier time of doing that, that's why I want to play this. It is definitely a card that is cuttable in this version of the deck, but I like to have it because of my side deck specifically, and to give me an additional interruption on in my hand, I should say. And then Tenki, of course, is great. It searches you out either your copy of Barong or Arvada or Rangbali. Those are your targets. You have 5 of those targets in the deck with 3 Tenki is great, but the reason why you play the 3 copies is because it's a continuous spell, meaning you can send it to the graveyard with Snake Eye Ash, and you can trigger its effect to be able to summon out a copy of the Snake Eyes Flamber's Dragon. So very important, we play these cards here. Prosperity, again, is great. We use the extra deck a decent amount, so we don't always want to be using it, so it's nice to have 2 copies, not 3. As for our non-engine, we have 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, 3 copies of the beautiful Secret Rare Effect Veiler. God, I love this rarity of Effect Veiler. And then we have 2 Book of Moon and 1 Called by the Grave. So why do we have these ratios? Well, first off, right now, Rescue Ace is one of the best decks in the format, and they really dislike targeted effect negation. So Imperm and Veiler are great for those to stop something like the Rescue Ace Turbulence. Ash Blossom is a generically good card, but it is even more important than that. It is a fire monster, so you can destroy it and then trigger the effects of your cards to summon themselves out. If you destroy Ash in your hand, you can summon out your copy of Garunix from your graveyard, which is really nice. Book of Moon as well is also good here because a lot of the time we're going to be dealing with our own forms of targeted effect negation. People are going to be maining Imperm, Veiler, so with Book of Moon we can dodge that. But it's also good going second and forces out a lot of 1-for-1 negation. It's just a good generic card right now. And then we have Call by the Grave as well as our 43rd card. Cards like Dimension Shifter, destroy this deck. Call by the Grave is there for that specifically, and of course a few other hand traps as well. So just keep that in mind, and in general, just good graveyard hate in this strategy. So that's why we have it. This is our 43 card main deck. Let's move on to our side deck and extra deck. Okay, in the extra deck, we're going to start off with our Xyz package. We have the 1 copy of Garunix Eternity, Hang of the Fire Kings. This is the new Fire King boss monster that came in the structure deck. We also have 1 copy of Dingirsu, Orcus of the Evening Star, and the 1 Zeus. This card here is incredible. You go through 1 when it's on your opponent's turn because you have the effect of Sanctuary, which lets you quick Xyz. This is your 1 target for it. You Xyz with it, and then you can destroy all other monsters on the field, which is really nice, not only to interrupt your opponent, but to trigger your powerful Fire King effects. Its other effect is going to be that during your turn as an ignition effect, you can detach a card from this, detach a material from this card, I should say, target a spell trap your opponent controls, or on the field again, not your opponent controls, on the field, and destroy them, which is great not only for triggering your effects of your Fire King cards, but just getting back or removal in general that your opponent would control. On top of that, if that effect resolves, this card gains 500 attack permanently. Its other effect, again, has 3 effects. This card here, when it's destroyed by battle or card effect, you can, and while it has material, you can special summon from your graveyard monsters up to the number of materials it had when it was destroyed. So if there were 2 materials on it when it was destroyed, you can summon back 2 different Fire Kings, which is insane. If there was 1 material, you can summon back a Fire King. Again, insane. It gets your engine going, removal. It's a great card. I want to play that too, but there's not enough room in the extra deck right now. We also have the 1 copy of Dingirsu. This card eventually will be cuttable, but it is still really good right now with this wave of support that we have. The card allows you to, on summon, either send a card that your opponent controls to the graveyard without targeting, or it attaches one of your banished machine monsters from this card to this card as material. We have no machines, so we're not using that effect. It is non-target removal, but even more importantly than that, if a card will be destroyed, you can detach a material from this card instead. So if you don't want a destruction effect to happen, you can go ahead and detach a material, which is going to be really nice. And then Zeus is Zeus, self-explanatory. If you don't have it, I would recommend investing it. It's about $15 right now, if I'm not mistaken. Moving on though, our next cards we're going to be talking about are our links. Starting off with the link ones of Relinquished Anima and the 1 Link Karibo. These cards here are mandatory. Some people are playing a copy of Salamangreat Almarash. I don't find it necessary. Anima is great for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's removal, but number 2, it puts a card in your spell and trap zone, which means you can technically send it to the graveyard with Snake Eye Ash, which is really nice. And then Link Karibo is great to get a Darken rotation. It's also a Cyberse, which is pretty important, so we're going to get to that a bit later. Our link 2s are going to be, let's move these out of the way. Our link 2s are going to be 1 copy of Dark and 1 copy of Hida, the 2 Fire Charmers. Hida comes in the structure deck, which is great, and then Dark as well is just a generic good card right now. These 2 cards here are solid. Both spellcasters, Darks do come up. There's a pretty heavy amount of Dark decks in the format, so having a Dark in your I say dark, but DHARC in your extra deck is nice to be able to just steal opponent's monsters and link climb with them as well. So keep that in mind. Then Hita is the same thing. A lot of fire decks in the format between Fire King and Rescue Ace. So you want to have access to Hita as well, and it gets you a search as well in the when it's destroyed. We also play the 1 copy of IP Masquerena with the SP Little Knight. I am playing Little Knight here. If you can't afford Little Knight, don't worry about it, okay? It's great to have access to in this deck. It really is. It's good to have in any deck. But if you don't have it, play Nightmare Unicorn instead. It's a more than suitable replacement for the time being until this card gets a reprint. I'm not going to say you have to buy this card to be able to get and play this deck the best way possible. It's great, it's nice to have, but you do not have to have it 100%. It's nice to have, but again, not completely mandatory. Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf is another awesome link 2 here, and it is one of the better options in the strategy. The reason why we're playing Sunlight Wolf though is because we are playing the Snake Eye stuff. If I was not playing the Snake Eye stuff, I probably wouldn't be playing Sunlight Wolf. I still can because we're playing a copy of the Kotaku Heat Soul, and this card does require Cyberse monsters, and this is of course a Cyberse, but it's not like super important. I probably would end up still playing it, but again, not the most critical thing. Also shout out to Milan again, he got me this card when I needed it right before the deck came out, so shout out to him. But yeah, the Kotaku Heat Soul, great card here as well. It gets you a draw, it gets you another draw, it gets a fire so you can destroy it, and then summon out other cards, some like your Hive of Darkiran, and start triggering powerful effects as well. Just an awesome card in the strategy. Moving on though to our links that are higher than link 3. We have 4 of them. Yeah, 4 different cards that are higher than link 3. It's not a link climbing deck by any means, but we have multiple options. So first off, we have Negates in Appaloosa, Bow of the Goddess, an awesome card right now in the strategy because of IP Masquerena. You can easily make an Appaloosa for 4 negates, which is really nice because the deck does not put up, it puts almost no negates. It puts up Arvada and it puts up Rangbali, and that's it. So you want to have more than that. We also play the 1 copy of Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avermax. I like this card a lot. Lists are not playing this right now. I am the first person I'm seeing actually play this card in my extra deck. The reason why is because this card is so difficult to out. In this strategy, it's less difficult to out because you have access to Dingirsu, I should say. But this card, if you make it with the IP Masquerena, it can't be destroyed by the Fire King cards, and you can also force them, and you can't be targeting it either. So it's such a good card in the strategy right now, but again, not super necessary. Usually you make it with IP plus Sunlight Wolf. Moving on though, we have the 1 copy of Axis Kotaku. This helps with OTKs. Again, you don't always have to be using it. Most of the time you can actually get away without playing it, but it's a really solid card. Just didn't want to be caught without it. And finally, we have the 1 copy of Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. This is one of my main deck outs to purely. I don't have any other main deck outs except for like Book of Moon. So for that reason, we want to have access to that as well. So that is really important. That is going to be our extra deck. Let's go ahead and move on to our side deck. Moving on to our side deck, we have 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent, a fantastic card. Will get sided in almost all the time in this strategy, either for prosperities or for something like the Snake Eye package. If I feel like I really don't need it for this game, or even if let's say something like my Book of Moons or Veilers are not going to be as impactful, so I want to have access to this. We also have the 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster and the 1 Lightning Storm, as well as a copy of Evenly Matched. So we have 3 different normal spells and traps because we're playing a copy of Triple Tactics Thrust. If I had more, would I play another copy of Thrust? Probably not. I feel like this plus whatever cards I need here is more than enough to get me out of whatever situation I'm in. So I felt that was the best situation to be. That's going to be it for our spells and traps in the side deck. We can then move on to our, well, additional hand traps. We have 3 copies of Nibiru, 3 copies of Droll, came in the structure deck. That's awesome. And 2 copies of DD Crow, and that's going to be 14 cards. Our 15th card is going to be Cowboy. So let's go ahead and talk about this. Well, first off, Nibiru is great against so many different decks, but I don't think it's main deckable right now. Eventually, when the format kind of adjust itself a bit more, then sure, it might be main deckable and then we'll play it there. But for right now, we're not going to, because Fire King doesn't need to summon more than 5 times. More than 4 times, I should say. Neither does Rescue Ace in a lot of situations. It can, but doesn't necessarily need to. Decks like Tearlaments don't care about Nib, so not everything actually cares too much about it. Roll, on the other hand, is like our insurance policy against these combo decks, so having access to this is pretty important, I find. And then DD Crow, I was having a hard time finding what other 2 cards I won into the side deck. Crow came up because it's actually really good against Fire King, and there's going to be a lot of Fire King at my local scene and in the regional levels right now, so I felt like having DD Crow is going to be solid to be able to get rid of these cards in the graveyard before they can activate their powerful effects, when they have to be done in the standby phase. And finally, Cowboy. YuGiOh Cowboy is here specifically for time. That is the only reason why. You can make it with cards like Barong and Arvata and Rangbali. I was gonna say Hanuman because that's the OCG name, but these cards here can make Cowboy and you can go for game that way. I want to have a way to win in time because my specific locals, it does take a while for us to get through our games. People like to read, which by all means, go ahead, but I want to have an option just in case. So Cowboy is there for that reason. And yeah, that's going to be it for the side deck and the extra deck, and of course the main deck. I do want to point out though, with this strategy, it's important to note that right now there are changes that you can make to the strategy. For example, in the side deck, you can definitely play a copy or 2 of Lava Golem or Dogra on the Mad Flame Kaiju. I highly recommend those being your Kaijus of choice though, or your removal attributing cards of choice, because they are of course fire monsters, which is quite important. Getting you access to a fire monster is nice because you can then destroy for other cards, so I want to point that out. The Amlo Whale card in the extra deck is not necessary until Snake Eye Populace comes out in Phantom Nightmare, and of course Promethean Princess comes out then as well. And then like I said before, the Nadir Servant package is great to play if you don't have access to the Wanted package. I recommend playing if you don't have it. If you do not have either the Wanted or the Nadir Servant package, play Prosperities. Play 3 copies of Prosperity. They're like $3 now on TCG Player, so I would definitely recommend that instead as just like additional consistency pieces. There are a ton of great cards in this actual structure deck. You can build a fully strong competitive deck with just the structure decks, but you do want to add some extra cards to just spice it up a little bit, make it a bit better, and I do recommend doing that if you have the funds for it. So guys, that's gonna be it for the actual deck profile. If you guys enjoyed the deck profile, do me a favor and smash the like button. If we hit 125 likes, I'll bring you a combo guide for this deck. That'll be coming out next week if we do it, but on Saturday we're gonna be coming at you with the How to Beat guide, the official How to Beat guide for Fire King. So if you want to learn how to beat this deck, then make sure to subscribe and join us in our journey to 4,000 subscribers. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like, comment, subscribe to all that great stuff, and I will see you all next time.